Next up on the number one tee.
Well, hello and welcome back to your virtual tea time. I am Tori. I am your host, and this podcast is all about women's golf, the ins, the outs, the ups, the downs. We devour women's golf here and we look at it at all angles. And today, you guys, I'm so excited about this podcast today. I have two guests here who winter in Arizona, summer in Minnesota. We have my buddy Leigh Klasse. Hi, Leigh.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so but I want everyone to listen to this. Leigh has been to 60 USGA championships. That is outrageous.
That's a lot of money.
That is a big investment.
Yes, it is.
No, but just to get to a USGA championship, one in your lifetime, could be the most proud moment of your life. And you've been to 60.
Yep. I remember my first one. It was pretty terrifying.
Oh my gosh. We're going to dive into that. But I also want to say you've also won 57 state championship titles in Minnesota.
Yep.
Oh my God.
I've had good partners.
No, stop. At least half of those are individual events.
More than
so we're
half
not going to be able to lean on a partner for those. We're also here with my friend and colleague Betsy Kelly. Hi, Betsy.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Professional golfer on the Epson Tour and is currently in pursuit of her LPGA Pro card. That is legit.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm so glad you're here. And you're also from Minnesota. So how do you guys know each other? How did you meet? I'm sure have you played against each other, or have your paths crossed on the golf course, or just kind of knowing each other?
Amateur golf.
Oh yeah, amateur golf. You know, I grew up, born and raised, and I started playing in all the Minnesota events. And you've got Leigh and you've got Claudia Pilot, who were you were the two that.
Wait, is Claudia here too?
Yeah,
because that name sounds familiar.
Oh yeah.
So they would just get out there, they'd win everything. Obviously,
and you're like, I'm a junior golfer, and in my eyes, I'm like, well, I'm just competing against all these other teenage girls, and Leigh would come in and kick our butts.
Oh my God, I love that. So Leigh, okay, no. So first, wait, why don't you tell us about that, Betsy, though? Because I always look at it the other way around, as us competing against the younger college players, high school players. What is it like as a high school player playing against someone that's a little older? What is that like when you're growing up and you're trying to compete as much as possible?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll just take it out of perspective just from Leigh, but when you're a junior golfer and you think you're only, I played in all these different junior golf tournaments, and you think your only competition are the girls around you and your age. And then all of a sudden you step it up and you're playing against some of these more 10-year veterans that have been playing for a while, and they're way more experienced. And you're like, all right, well, and they come in and, that's why I laugh. I'm like, Leigh comes in and kicks our butts, and it's it pushes us to get better. And we're Claudia did the same thing. And
no, and every time I have Leigh on my Instagram stories, I either have Betsy or someone. I mean, there's numerous people that are like, there's Leigh. There's Leigh. Oh, you're with Leigh. I think it's more than anyone else, actually. You are so recognizable, and there are numerous people that give you shout outs every time you're on my Instagram stories.
Well, playing in the USGA championships is I've made friends around the country.
Yeah.
And then playing in a lot of tournaments in Minnesota. And then the more I play down here, I just make more friends. So
yeah. Well, let's get into that first USGA championship. You said you were really nervous. What was that? Which one was it? Tell us about the qualifying and then the championship.
Well, it was the USGA WAPL, Women's Amateur Public Links, which has since been retired. Mm-hmm. And I had just transferred to the University of Minnesota to try to play golf and walk on. And one of the things the coaches obviously wanted you to do was to try to play more tournaments in the summer. Because I grew up playing, the little invitationals at all the little clubs around my hometown, but I never played in any state tournaments until I went to the University of Minnesota. And
you were still pushed by the coach to do
pushed
so
by the
sign
coach.
up.
So he's like, hey, just sign up for this qualifier. You're a public links golfer. I didn't belong to a country club or anything. And I remember it being at the qualifier was at Keller Golf Club, which in itself has a lot of history in Minnesota. I mean, it's hosted professional tournaments. Patty Bird played there, all that. And it was pretty terrifying because, you know, you go to these invitationals and you're playing with people that are 20 and 30 years older than you. And now you're playing against people that are your age or even younger. Mm-hmm. And you hit the ball and then they kind of say bye as they hit right over your ball. And you're thinking, man, I used to think I hit the ball pretty long, but I am really short.
Yeah, but so you still qualified though.
I still qualified. And
did you know the magnitude of what a USGA championship was all about at the time? Or were you, since you were pushed by your coach to sign up, did you not really?
I really didn't. We, at that time, the chairperson was Cora Jane Blanchard, who's since passed away. And she was a big figure in women's golf in Minnesota from a USGA. I mean, she was actually chairman of the women's committee at the USGA. Mm-hmm. And she was our leader for that tournament. And so she hooked me up with another player who later, you know, became a good friend of mine. And we roomed together at this tournament out in Oregon. And Cora Jane just kind of took care of the little ones that had never qualified before. And we went to Dairy Queen and that kind of actually became our thing. So every time I would qualify in this tournament, Cora Jane would be there and we'd be like, okay, what night are we going to Dairy Queen?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite the experience. I did qualify for the match play and now I'm playing this gal that is from Arizona. Actually, I think it was Kay Cornelius or somebody. But anyway, she had a bunch of people out there following her. And now, so every time she hits a shot, there's clapping and, you know,
oh my
cheering.
goodness.
And every time I hit a shot, there's silence. And I'm thinking, this is not what I'm used to, because in Minnesota, I always feel like everybody's kind of rooting for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a conversation going on all the time. And it's like, whoa, this is serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a good experience. And I think what I learned from that is that it's just me out there against whoever I'm competing against. And it doesn't matter what other people think. I'm just doing my own thing and they can do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. So, exactly. But it also impressed upon me one thing is that when my folks would come and watch, I always told them, if you're not clapping for everybody in that group, you're not clapping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And actually, now that I think back at some of the rounds I've had in the past where people were following and, you know, cheering, clapping, what have you, I'd say most of them are cheering and clapping for all good shots, which is, it's a very good point. Very good point. So after 60 USGA championships, which one's the most memorable?
Well, this last one in Anchorage, Alaska was pretty memorable. Yeah. Spending the whole week in Alaska and, you know, having volunteers out there that are telling you that the thing they got on their belt is bear spray because you got to watch out for the bears. So that was pretty memorable.
Yeah, I would say so. But the course was beautiful.
It was beautiful. There were no houses on it. You're just isolated. Every hole is isolated. It reminded me a lot of northern Minnesota with all the big pine trees and everything. But yeah. That was definitely a memorable experience.
Yeah. Well, you have had plenty, and I'm just so grateful that you're here.
Thanks.
So we're going to get into with Betsy kind of what the path to becoming a professional golfer is all about. So do you have a similar experience? Like Leigh was talking about her first USGA championship. Do you have a similar experience, like first time going to Q school or anything that really sticks out in your memory?
Yeah, well, I'll even back it up since we're kind of on the Minnesota train and that's where we're both from. Yeah. But it's funny because, like, you know, I'm born and raised in Minnesota. I start playing when I'm 3-4 years old. And at 4 years old, I was like, I want to be an LPGA professional golfer. Uh-huh. Like, that's my dream, right? Yeah. And I told everyone. And, like, you know, you go to school, it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? So it's interesting because my entire life, like, you strive towards that. So I start playing junior tournaments, all the Minnesota junior PGA stuff. And lately I've been going through some old pictures and I found some like cute little pictures of me with the trophy. And I'm like 8 years old. I got a little choker on, you know. But the reason I bring this up is it's funny because you go through your junior career and I won a lot, and it was a lot of fun. And then, my goals were, okay, first I got to, win in my junior career, play at the national level. And then goal 1 is to get, a Division I scholarship, go to college. But you get to college before we even talk about going pro, you get to college, you're like, dang, all these girls are good. Like, you think you're really good in Minnesota. And then you get out there and you're like, oh my gosh, they all are just like me.
Yeah.
And so that was like the first hard part of realizing, like, dang, like, you got to step it up.
Because also, is it not just the best golfers in the country, but is it the best golfers in the world that are coming to the United States to play college here too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of these teams,
For sure now. I think when I was in college, it was more US centric, but now for sure.
Oh yeah. They're going out of the country and they're getting a lot of, and there's great international talent. And that's another, point that's kind of tough, because it's like, well, these are, scholarships that are, going out to international players, but it's throughout the whole world. So it's competition steep.
Yeah. Leigh, at any point did you think about not being an amateur anymore, trying to go the professional route?
My last year in college playing at the U, I did think about it, and then I just kind of was realistic. I saw my competition out there, and I'm like, you know what? I like to eat. I like to do things.
Yeah.
I don't think I can make money at this.
Like, you don't want to put all that time and energy behind something.
I love to practice.
Yeah.
So that would not have been the issue. The issue would have been, I have always just played golf to have fun.
Yeah.
And I like to compete and all, but now you're talking about a paycheck that you got to take home to pay the bills. And the whole thing about getting sponsors, and now you feel that pressure because you got to play good for the sponsors. And I just decided that wasn't me. I was going to do other things and have other things in my life besides golf, but I was still going to play a lot of golf and have fun.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's super smart, though, that you knew that, because there's a lot of girls out there that are amateurs and they're in college and they don't quite know that harsh reality yet of what that looks like.
And what happens?
Yeah. I mean, think about this. You're in college, and your entire life as a junior golfer, you've gotten things kind of handed to you. Not handed to you, but a lot of players, you've got your parents that are paying for your entry fees as you grow up. You go to college, you could be on a full ride scholarship. Everything's taken care of, your equipment. You've got trainers, you've got coaches. You graduate, there is no, it's, hey, good luck. It's not like football. It's not like basketball where, you play awesome and you sign a contract and you're good to go. It's like, hey, if you don't have sponsors or rich parents, now you have to go to Q school and hopefully you play really, really well. And then hopefully, it's like this whole long journey. And
so let's say you are one of like the top elite players in college. Like, at the next point is to have people reaching out to you to sponsor you. And then hopefully you get exemptions to some of these big tournaments. And that's kind of the sideways route to it. So that only, the 0.00001% actually get.
Yeah. So step 1 is you graduate college, you go to Q school. And
what does Q school, does Q actually stand for something?
Yeah, sorry. So it's LPGA Qualifying School.
Okay.
So
I never knew that.
We're learning something new every day.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And everyone just refers to it as Q school, but yeah, it's qualifying school for the LPGA Tour. And there's 3 stages. So stage 1 is you have to go to that, and it's not cheap. I mean, your entry fees, $2,500 plus a week in California plus.
So meaning $2,500 just to walk in, but you have to get your lodging, and obviously, so there's going to be costs for lodging, food, travel, all of that on top of it. Can anyone do this?
Yeah, right. It's literally like $5,000 when 1 week is said and done.
But anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Anyone can just say,
Yep, you can go sign
Yeah,
up. You can go sign up, Tori.
listen, Lee, I'm going to see how I play this Sunday first against you, okay? No, I'm just kidding. Like,
Tori's
there's
going to Q school.
like, there's that,
Let's spread that
might
rumor.
go viral, okay?
Spread that rumor.
As an amateur, you can go as an amateur. So.
But and we're going to get into the whole amateur, like at what point do you become a professional and everything. But okay, so there's 3 stages to Q school. Why is it 3 stages? What is the first stage about? Tell us.
Yeah. So first stage, it's tons of college players that are just coming out, like I explained, or it's girls who are still playing and they're trying to get full, status on the Epson or the LPGA. But basically 300 plus girls show up in Palm Springs, California every August. And the top 100 or so move on to stage 2, which is then in typically, I think it's October in Florida. If you make it to if you complete Q school, you have Epson Tour status. Now, your status might not be very good because it ranks you depending on how you play at Q school, but that top 100 that goes to stage 2, that's where you're kind of competing for like your full Epson Tour status, if you will. And then from there, you go to the 3rd stage, which is called Q Series, and that's where you can get your LPGA card.
Okay, so if you make it to stage 2, you have a chance to get a good status for the Epson Tour.
Yeah.
Which is the feeding ground to the LPGA.
Correct.
And then if you make it to the 3rd stage, which is how many players then? How many players go from the 2nd stage to the 3rd stage?
I think it was, okay, don't quote me on this,
Yeah,
but it was like maybe 45 or so.
And each stage is multiple golf round, like 4 rounds in a row, or what do these stages look like?
Yeah, it's the first stage is 4 rounds. So there's 3 rounds and then there's a cut to the 4th round.
Okay.
Second stage is 4 rounds. No. Yeah, second stage is 4 rounds. Q series, which is like the 3rd stage, is 8 rounds.
Oh my God, that sounds
It's
8
like
rounds in a row?
brutal,
Like
2 weeks.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, it's miserable. Like, so this is the thing. If you're on the LPGA and you don't play well to secure your card, you have to go back to Q series. And that's why no one wants that, right? Because it's like the most brutal 2 weeks mentally and physically just to secure your card again.
Oh, my blood pressure just went up when you said 8 rounds.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's just, yeah. So no one likes Q school, but you have to do it.
You have to do it. Wow. And so you go into your year. So we're just starting out 2023 right now. So you go into this year knowing like, okay, I'm going to commit to Q school because they're far apart. Each stage is far apart. Like,
yeah, it's all in like the fall. So stage 1 starts in August, and then if you make it, you go to stage 2, which is October or November. It was different this year because the hurricane made it change, and then Q series is in December. So it's all basically in the fall. But yeah, so like let's say you're graduating college in May and you're like, I want to turn professional. So you plan out and you say, okay, well, I have to get ready for Q school coming up, and you have to figure out who's, are you paying for this? Like do you have a sponsor? Who's going to help you? Wow. Because when all's said and done, I mean, you're talking $10,000+.
Wow. That's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So do college players wait till they graduate, or are there some college players that try and do it before they graduate?
Some will do it before.
Is there any stipulation or rules about that? Like what if they make it?
So yeah, if they make it, so like a lot of juniors will go because then they know. So for example, if you're going into your senior year, they'll go in the fall because they want to try and secure status to when they do graduate in May, they can go out and play tournaments right away, but they don't have to turn pro until after school. So basically when they start playing.
So they can pass Q school all the way, all stages, and then pretty much say, okay, I'm not going to start competing until June. So the next 5 months I can still compete as a college player.
Correct. And I think that's just for the Epson Tour, but I do think if you make it all the way, again, we might want to like look into this.
It's okay. It's okay.
But if you make it all the way through like Q series and you get your LPGA card, I think you have to turn pro maybe on the spot.
Yeah. So was the process very similar when you were thinking about
There was a
the
Q
idea.
school. I don't remember how many stages there were, but there was a qualifying school that you had to go through, and it was out in California. I know that. But yeah, I mean, there's so many players that are trying to do it nowadays. I don't know that it was as popular a choice when I was in college, because, you know, a lot of those people were like, well, I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a family, and I'm moving down that track. There were a lot less that were saying, oh, I'm going to Q school, and I'm going to try to be a professional golfer.
Yeah. And this is the same process for the men too.
Yeah. Things are changing though for the guys. So with this whole, like, I don't know, the Live Tour and all that. So it actually created more opportunities. The other big news was you can now get PGA Tour status right out of college for the men. I think it's like the top nationally ranked players get PGA Tour status.
And that's Wagger points. Is that how they decipher?
I'm sure they're using the World Amateur Golf ranking.
I think that's what they're using.
So if you're in the top 10 of Wagger points, you're just automatically in.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah. No,
man, I should have brushed up on all my.
No, it's okay. It's interesting. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. So let's go back to the ladies' side, though. Yeah. So, what did you go through Q school last fall? Then, Tell us about it.
I did. So I was pissed last fall. So, I've gone to stage 1 a couple times now, and it's funny because right before I'm like, you know, I played Cactus Tour during the winter. I played like one Epson Tour event last year. And then I didn't do a lot during the summer. I could have gone and competed and done a bunch of like mini tour events and just a prep for Q school. And I didn't because, again, the harsh reality is it's expensive. And I'm not going to spend $3,000 to go maybe win that back.
Yeah.
So I stuck around Minnesota all summer, worked on my game, played the Minnesota State Open.
And won.
I won. I defended my title.
Thank you.
2 years in a row.
You know what? Thank you, Leigh. I'm glad that you were here to say that because I would have just been like,
2 years in a row.
I love it.
Thanks.
So you competed, you went back to Minnesota, you competed a bunch there, did a lot of state stuff. And
then I went to Q school and I felt like I had some good confidence and good momentum going in. And I just hate stage 1. Like Palm Springs, 100 degrees and like that week grind, it was a mental thing for me. I had a couple good rounds, but I had one bad round. So I didn't make it to stage 2. But with that said, I still have Epson Tour status, but it's conditional. So like I said in the beginning, it basically ranks you however well you do at stage 1. So when all these girls enter into an Epson Tour event, if someone's ahead of you on that list, they'll get in before you. But there's some tournaments at the end of the year that you can possibly get into. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I'm pissed. Like I wanted to get to stage 2. I was like, this is my year. So I'm just doing it, the difficult path, but.
So, well, tell me about it though. So what does now 2023 look like? Like what does your schedule look like in preparing for Q school again in the fall?
Yeah. So here's my game plan this year. I'm gonna play. That's where I went wrong last year. Because last year I had the same status and I should have gone out and played Women's All Pro Tour all summer, which is an amazing tour.
Okay.
So the Women's All Pro Tour is kind of the stepping stone to the Epson, and the Epson Tour is the stepping stone to the LPGA. So my game plan this year is to play Women's All Pro Tour. I hate stage 1, so I just want to try and skip it.
Hey, I love it. How would you do that though?
So
is there a way? Is there someone that you need to know?
There's a way. You need to know some people too.
It's a money thing, right? If you win so much money, you can skip stage 1.
Yeah. So Women's All Pro Tour, if you take top 5 on the tour, which is just earnings. So if you have to basically play them all and hopefully you win a couple. Top 5 on that automatically go to stage 2.
Nice.
The other thing, it's like, here's the reality of women's golf is I actually have no idea what my schedule is going to look like because I could get into an Epson Tour event and you can do that by, most likely for me, I have to get a sponsor's exemption. I'm really hoping I can get into the Carlisle Women's Open again.
Okay.
Carlisle Classic. It's here at Longbow.
Okay.
I got into that last year on sponsors exemption. So hopefully I can get that one again. Just like praying. But if you get into one and then you play well and you make the cut, you get reshuffled in higher on the priority list. And then I could be playing the Epson Tour all year. And
yeah, so you just never know.
I could win on the Epson Tour twice and get my LPGA card. Like, you never know.
Like, so you don't even really know what's going to go on in 3 weeks. Like, what's the time frame where you can feel comfortable knowing what's going on in the next week? Or
right now, because it's like kind of off season, there's not really any tournaments until March.
Mm-hmm.
So next 3 weeks, I actually feel pretty good.
Okay.
But starting in March, I'm going to be like, I have no idea. Like,
yeah,
it could be a total toss up because if I play well in one tournament and get exemption into, Women's All Pro Tour, if you win just one, you get an Epson Tour exemption for like the next week. So randomly you could be like, oh, I'm flying here now.
Mm-hmm. But again, remind us, all these tournaments, whether it's All Pro, Epson Tour, you are paying an entry fee.
Yeah. And that's like what I really want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because
how much does it like break down the cost of actually, so you have to pay to get into these tournaments, all the expenses, and you just hope that, like this is what people have no idea what the harsh reality is with women's golf. And the guys complain. And I'm like, you guys are still making 10 times more than us. And my hotel and my airfare and my car rental is not 10 times less. Yeah. So it's like at least their expenses are getting paid for a little bit more.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, here's the deal. Like we're in the first, it's the new year.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to spend, $400 on my Epson Tour membership, $495 on my Cactus Tour membership. Like just the memberships alone, I'm already a couple grand in.
Wow.
Now, an entry fee. So I play in a Cactus Tour this weekend, which it's kind of funny. It's just like a bunch of us girls. There's not a lot of players in it right now because people are still kind of like, I'm in off-season mode. But it's $595 to play in one of those. Women's All Pro Tour and Epson Tour, you're looking at like $400 to $700 for entry fees. That's before you even book your flight, pay for your hotel, your car rental, your food.
Mm-hmm.
So every tournament you play in where you're traveling, you're looking at like $2,500 to $3,000.
Jeez. And you still don't, you don't know how you're going to do. It could be.
It's like gambling. And most of these girls, if you make the cut on the Epson Tour, which you're one of the top golfers in the country, you might make your entry fee back. Yeah. So most weeks, girls are in the hole. And I always tell people, I'm like, look, you don't make money unless you're top 50 in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Even girls on the LPGA are struggling right now because expenses. The LPGA has you traveling all over the world and it's not cheap.
No, you almost have to build a network of people in those areas so you can say, hey, do you have a bedroom open this week that I can come and stay with you and save yourself hotel fees?
Yeah.
Leigh, that's spot on. That's what girls do. I've got quite a few good friends on the LPGA. And this is like the highest end of women's golf. Like I'm not even there. So it's expenses and, you don't get paid as much. You go to tournaments and they have host families and then they make these relationships where they can say, hey, I'm coming to this tournament again. Can I please stay with you? And again, that's amazing that people are out there willing to do that. But when people look at professional golfers and they just think we're rich.
Yeah.
And we golf all the time. And I'm like, we're just, I'm like calling people if they know someone in, this
It's
state.
true.
Tell us what a host family is, though, because a lot of the families out there or people out there can possibly do this for players. What does it entail? How do you, who would you be contacting? Or
Well, so for USGA tournaments, some of the tournaments do offer that as an option. And basically you contact the USGA and you say, I'd like to stay with the host family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's all well and fine. And in my experience, the host families are super. They probably live on the course, so you can walk to the clubhouse and you don't really need transportation and all that. But once you're out of the tournament, it's kind of expected that you're leaving the host family, right? So
You
if you
play,
haven't-
you stay.
yeah, you play, you stay. Otherwise, bye-bye. Right. And in all fairness, some of the host families are like, oh, you don't have to leave. You can stay, because you might be out of the tournament and your plane doesn't leave for another 3 days.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now where are you staying?
That's a good point that you don't even think about.
But it's true for USGA too.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm like, here I am talking about expenses. Amateurs don't get paid.
we don't.
It's
So,
very expensive.
Traveling, let's just say golf, if you pick it up, it's a very expensive sport.
If you want to compete.
Yeah. If you want to compete. I mean, and that's one of the issues that I have with the USGA is that I think they charge entirely too much for the qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it scares people away from even trying it because they don't want to pay $200 for one round of golf at what could potentially be a public golf course.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've had discussions with some of those folks and I've said, why don't you do a step in? I understand that I should pay more if I qualify, but maybe I only pay $100 for this qualifier, and now to go to the national tournament, I have to pay another $100 or $150 entry fee, more of a step-in fee, right? Mm-hmm. So now maybe you'll get qualifying fields that, like in Minnesota, we're struggling to get 5 or 6 players on some of our sites, and in fact, last year they canceled the Mid-Am qualifier because they didn't have enough players. Yeah. They had to have at least 3, I think. They only had 2.
That's right. I remember that.
Or they qualify and then they realize how much it's going to be, let's say they qualify and then they start looking at hotels and airfare and all that. And it's like, oh, this all of a sudden is a $4,000 trip.
Unless you qualify for an open.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I qualified for the senior women's open, the first one in Chicago. I had no idea. I mean, I knew I was going to be playing with these, the Laura Davies of the world and whatnot. I was going to see them at lunch, but I had no idea when I showed up and they're like, well, that Lexus out there is yours to use for the week.
Stop.
And I'm like, really?
Sign me up.
And my son Zach's along and he's like, whoa, we're driving in style.
Wow, that's amazing.
Plus, as an amateur, they let you expense, I think it was up to $2,000. So you just got to show receipts for the hotel or your airfare or whatever, and they'll reimburse you another $2,000 back. So actually playing that tournament is the cheapest one. If you can qualify.
Yeah. So going back to the host family though, Betsy, how would one, what on the professional level, what does that look like? Getting to be able to stay with host families or becoming a host family?
Yeah, the tours are really, really good at coordinating that. So I know the Women's All Pro Tour does a really good job. So does the Epson Tour and the LPGA, but basically all levels of tours for women golf. The Women's All Pro Tour, for example, they have someone that just coordinates with the golf course, reaches out to the head pro or the community to say, hey, we're trying to get host housing for all these players, and people just come. People want to help. So once the word gets out, I think it spreads, and then there's always somebody who's coordinating it. Mm-hmm. And I just went and played the PXG women's match play down in Florida, and I stayed with the host family. And sometimes I'm hesitant because I'm like, I do think I'd play better if I had a hotel and could do my own thing because,
That's how I would think too, actually.
But and then I sit back and would I have played better if I?
Yeah. Well, then how did it go?
It went well, but it's I made the cut and then I got down to these battle rounds. So you basically play 27 holes in one day and you have to beat out all the girls in your group. And anyways, it's a weird point system. I don't remember how it works.
Yeah, I've never heard of such a thing.
But I was close. I just had to win my last match and I lost, but it was against Jean Reynolds and she's so great. She's a veteran on tour.
Mm-hmm. So Leigh brought up the idea of, see, at USGA championships, at least, you don't know how far, if you're going to make it to match play, like you don't know how long you're going to actually be at these places. And it's pretty much the same for you too. You don't know if you're going to make the cut or not. So how do you manage? This is such a silly question, but I really want to know, how do you manage booking your flights, booking lodging? Like, do you just hope for the best and book your flight for the last day, or what do you do?
Yeah, I guess I'll talk first because I was talking about the most recent PXG women's match play. I booked my flight to where I was planning to make it to at least the last day. Mm-hmm. And then like halfway through the, week, I'm like, wait, shit, like if I do make the championship round, my flight leaves. Like I'm gonna have to rebook that. But I didn't make the championship round, but when something like that happens, I actually want to get home as fast as I can.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
My host family was kind of like, you should stay and we can play golf. And I'm like, no, I want to get back to Arizona.
Yeah. I want to get home.
Yeah. I want to get back. So I just, book whatever's next. And
yeah,
how
do you do it, Leigh?
Well, I started out with the philosophy that I always booked one day less than the entire championship, with the concept that, you know what, if I'm in the finals, I'm going to be more than happy to rebook my flight.
Yeah. That's.
But lately, depending on the venue, it's kind of like, well, I'll just book through the championship and sightsee. So like in Anchorage, I had time to do some sightseeing.
Yeah, I'd probably stick around Alaska.
Yeah. So it kind of depends on the venue, but I would say most of the time now, I'm booking through the end of the championship with the idea that I'm going to have a couple days probably to do some sightseeing.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And what do you think about Troon being the host this year?
I love it.
For the USGA Senior
If I qualify, I can sleep in my own bed.
Yeah. Do you think that will make a difference? Like, do you think, obviously cost-wise it will.
Well, cost-wise, definitely. Because I won't have to pay for transportation as I'll have my own car. Obviously won't have to pay for hotel.
Yeah.
And meals, I'm just shopping at the grocery store and eating at home.
Now, is it at Troon Country Club or Troon North?
It's Troon Country Club.
Have you played there before? I haven't.
I have never played there before. So
that will be fun for you guys. That's exciting.
I hope so. I will have to review the sites and
because you still choose where you qualify, whether it's Minnesota or here.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to qualify here?
I did qualify actually for the Senior Women's Open here, but Briarwood was hosting and it was in May and it just worked out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, Betsy. So let's get into the next step then. Let's say you either are in that. So if you make it to the third Q School series, how do you get into the LPGA Tour? Like out of those 45 women or 50 women that make it to that third stage, how many just get the magic card and get to show up at these LPGA tournaments?
See, that right there is the dream. Like I want to be in that moment. It's gonna be a grind.
Yeah.
But I actually think there's closer to maybe 75 girls at the third stage Q series.
Okay.
The top 45, I believe, get some sort of status. And then I think it was the top 20 or 25 get their full card.
Which means any LPGA tournament they can go play in.
Yep. So that's like at the, it just happened this past December where, you've got all those girls lined up with holding their big cards saying, 2024 or 2023 rookie.
Wow.
So that's kind of the process. But, you think about all those girls and that's like the shoes that I'm in. And this is it's just the harsh reality of women's golf. You graduate college and you're like, this has been my dream since I'm 4 years old. How do I do this? Well, I don't have rich parents. I'm on my own. I got to pay rent. I got to buy food.
You have to train.
What do you do? And so all these girls are hustling side jobs to pay for this.
Really?
And most of them, here's the deal, unless you have rich parents that are just going to fund your way, or you get some random, it's tough to get sponsors unless you are, that's why I've tried to grow my social media presence, which is still hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're going to get into that. Trust me.
Yeah.
But meaning if you are a bigger name on social media, you might get some extra money to help fund, your goals.
Yep. But it's tough because then you're like, okay, well, I have to come up with basically like 80 grand to go play because you don't sign a contract. You don't.
Well, and who are you using for a caddy?
Yeah, right.
Because that's another expense.
It is.
Yeah.
So
you have to have a caddy, right? I mean, it's a requirement to have one.
Yeah. So, well, Epson Tour.
Such a good question. Thanks, Leigh.
That's a really good question. So LPGA you're required, and it is a big expense. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't understand that. That's why at the end of the year, 100th place on the LPGA Tour last year made $166,000. And I posted this on Instagram the other day, and I got so much hate. They're like, I'd kill for $166,000.
Yeah, but how much did they pay in expenses?
Yeah, exactly. on average, $125,000.
Wow.
So you're a top 100 player in the world, and you're barely making it because the caddy is expensive. So, like for me, I mean, my boyfriend, he'll caddy quite a bit. I've played in LPGA Monday qualifiers before, where I'm calling up,
just a course caddy or anyone?
Yeah, I call up the shop and I'm like, hey, do you have anyone around that's local that I can just, give a couple $100 to?
Well, and I'm sure that's probably a good way to do it.
A lot of people do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big expense.
I don't know. I think getting a local caddy sometimes is a crapshoot.
It totally is. Like, you don't know what to expect, and then
I used to do that at USGA tournaments, and I was like, I don't do it
after
anymore.
A couple experiences, you're like, so who do you have, Leigh? I don't know who you have.
Actually, the last few years, my son Zach has come along with us. He's taken vacation from his job and caddy for me, and so it's a pretty sweet deal. I only got to pay for him to get there, and
and he gets to experience it too.
Yeah, he has a great.
He obviously grew up playing.
He did. He started when he was about 5. Yeah. He didn't have a very good teacher because it was me, but
stop.
But actually, the more he plays, the better he gets. So, but
that's so sweet.
He has a great time with it.
You haven't fired him yet?
No. Even though there's been terms where I'll look at him and I'll say, "What do I have to do here?" And he's like, "Well, stop playing like crap." He didn't use that word, but he's like, "Don't suck."
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh, I love it.
But
I need to see a picture of you too. Then,
but both of us, he caddied for me when he was in high school.
Yeah,
and actually, our oldest son Simon caddied for me a couple times too.
See, and that's perfect.
Yeah.
So Betsy, what keeps you going? Because this sounds terrible. To be honest, this sounds stressful. I have anxiety for you. Like, what keeps you going?
Oh, I don't know.
Because it's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. I don't know. It's always been my dream. And honestly, like, it's for me to like prove to myself that I can do it. And also to like show you know how much like people talk fear into my plans and, tell me you can't do that. There's no way you could do that, or like to prove them all wrong, but more so to do it for myself because it's all I've ever wanted to do. And like set that example too.
What does it take? Like putting money aside, training wise, what does it take to be at that level?
Oh, dang. It takes a lot.
Like, what does your training schedule look like?
Yeah. So my days are long. So I wake up every day at like 4:30.
I love it.
I hit the gym. So I'm a fitness nut, and I post a lot about that on Instagram too.
Yeah. And
just like some of my background, I had to get healthy and strong again. But yeah, I'm in the gym every single day. I'm there 4:45, 5 a.m. And then after that I work, and I do social media work. And then I hit the course in the afternoon, like after lunch. And, I typically have a pretty solid practice plan, which I hadn't in the past. I was just like showed up and I'm like, okay, well, hit some balls and like I might go play. But I'm like totally revamping my game plan this year, which I think that's what I needed to like kind of kick myself into, a solid plan. But it's a daily grind.
And without getting too technical, what part of your game are you working on the most?
My mental game.
Oh, gosh.
It's a freaking like, oh my gosh. Dude.
Yeah, but that you can only work on the golf course in competition. Don't you agree? So what are you working on at the range?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I know. Range work right now, like I've really been just swing work. I'm trying to shallow out. It's been an ongoing thing for me. I also early extend, which
I love early extending.
Oh my
It's my
gosh.
most favorite move ever.
Mine too, I guess, and I can't get rid of it. But then I'm like, the other day, I'm like, you know what? Jack Nicklaus was the greatest golfer of all time. And he early extended, so I'm going to rock it.
Well, and I also heard a lot of trainers or teachers don't mind early extension because it does give power. It doesn't give a ton. It does have some power to it.
Yeah.
But shallowing out, what's the opposite of shallowing out?
Steep.
Okay. So you're a little steep.
Yeah. I'm not that steep, right? I've gotten better, but so that's my range work. And I'm trying to, which is good words of advice for amateurs trying to get better, do more on-course shots on the range. Don't just sit there and hammer balls. Like I'm trying to get back behind every shot and actually visualize it and then get up and hit that shot. And I'm trying to work, hit a draw, hit a cut, hit a low, hook.
Absolutely.
Just working on different kinds of shots like that so you can actually take it from the range to the course.
Leigh, do you still work on things?
I practiced this morning before I came here.
You did? What did that look like? Is there something specific that you're working on?
I'm just trying to get the right tempo and the right pause at the top. And
yeah.
Leigh's always had a good tempo.
I know.
That's
sickening.
That's what I need to work at is tempo, but tempo and trying to get the ball a little higher.
Yeah. So throughout your years, has there been one thing that's always kind of come back that you've always had to work on? Like one, I want to say bad habit or habit that you'd like to change that you've always just constantly been working on. Like some seasons it's good, some seasons it's bad, but it's always kind of lurking.
I think the one bad habit I get into is I get into opening up my stance when I'm putting. And then I know because I start to cut the ball and push the ball.
Yeah.
And so this last week, actually, I've been working on my square stance because I've always had a square stance and just taking it straight back and straight through. I don't arc it or anything.
It's interesting.
But yeah, I always just, when I work on the range, I'm just really working on tempo because if I have good tempo, I'm going to strike the ball very squarely.
So you'd say on the rounds that you struggle the most, your tempo is most likely off?
It usually is off. I'm getting too fast is usually where I'm at. And then I start doing the little duck hook and kind of coming over the top a little bit.
That's so me. I get too fat. You just got to keep good tempo. Yeah.
But my day does not start at 4:30.
Yeah, I wish mine did.
I roll over at 8 and I say, do I want to get up? And I'm like, no, little bit later.
I gotta say, I go through seasons where I'm 4:45 too, but I am in a season right now where there's no alarm. And most days I am waking up naturally at that time, but it's like if I sleep, I'm gonna just keep sleeping. I don't know. It's just an odd time.
I've decided I'm
wish.
a 10 o'clock tea time this year.
Yeah. Oh, that's your tea time this year at 10 a.m. I like it. I like it.
Sign me up for that. My days are crazy right now, but.
Well, we got to wrap things up, but let's first talk about social media. So you have, first of all, let everyone know what your IG handle is right now. And then let's talk about how you got into it, what you like about it, what you dislike about it, it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not. So first, my Instagram handle is @BetsKellyGolf. So BETS Kelly Golf.
And I'll have that in the show notes too for everyone.
Yeah, so give me a follow. Tori too, you post so much great stuff. It's so fun to follow. That's where I, see Leigh, except for today. Yeah, so I actually tied back to this whole conversation. Like when I first turned pro, I had to quit after 6 months because I couldn't financially do it. And I just went into this deep hole. And I actually went MIA for a couple of years. I had some health issues and so I finally was like, I got to compete again. I got to get back out there. And I made a plan. I'm like, how am I going to do this? And one of the things that pissed me off was that all these girls that weren't actually golfing were getting the money. They were getting the free stuff. And there's tons of girls out there grinding on mini tours who aren't getting any of that and help. Yeah. So that's where I'm like, I want to grow my Instagram. So that's a way I can chase my dream. Like, I'm just trying to chase my dream here. Yeah. So that's like, you know, how I kind of sat down and was like, I really want to grow the social media side.
And again, you're out there teaching people, you're putting out content that's actually teaching people, and you're also showing them your journey along the way too. Yeah. I mean, I agree. It is very frustrating to see the golf influencer out there that isn't actually playing golf. And again, whether it's professional or like just out there playing in, you know, state tournaments, local stuff, like actually playing rounds and posting rounds and like doing all that. Like it's not there.
And don't get me wrong, like props to them because they've built a brand and like they're getting money on that. But just for girls out there who are actually trying to be the image of golf and, you know, chase their dreams, and they can't even get equipment. Yeah. So
it can be frustrating.
But yeah, I mean, my whole goal with Instagram is like everything that some of those pages are doing, I'm doing the opposite. I want to provide value. And I just love all things golf and helping others improve their game and helping grow the game. Yeah. And so if I can post some stuff out there and I, you know, inspirational stuff too. And, you know, it's like, hey, it's the first year right now. Everyone's got some sort of, you know, workout goal, I feel like too. Yeah. So I share a lot of that just, you know, for my story. But it's interesting because here I am, I've got like 60,000+ followers and it's still hard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't even get balls. Titleist won't give me golf balls. I'm like, give me balls.
You always wonder like, okay, once I get to this amount of followers, then this is going to happen. And then so on and so forth. And it's mind boggling. It's mind boggling because then you see it's tough. So I commend you for sticking with it. I have to mentally tell myself to keep sticking with it. Just show up, do the best you can. Yeah. You know. And so I commend you for that. One last question I have is, when does an amateur officially become a professional? And when can you say you're a professional golfer? Because I feel like that comment, that title is thrown around a lot too. Like, I'm a professional golfer. Oh, okay. Wow. What does that even mean? Can I be a professional golfer like starting tomorrow? Do I have to say I'm going to Q school? Is that Leigh? Is that what I have to do?
No, you just have to.
Tori goes to Q school.
I think you just have to be taking over $1,000 in.
So
what and whatnot.
I think it's $1,000.
It went up to $1,000 now. For
you have to
status.
accept money, but I feel like we could have a whole podcast on this exact conversation because there's a lot of girls out. It's more so girls that are like, "Hey, I'm a professional golfer." It's because they're accepting money for golf content or golf anything at this point. So I feel like there's kind of two different versions of professional golfers.
Yeah, that's why it's confusing.
Yeah, there's like professional golfers who actually have tour status. So I've been trying to tell people like I'm a tour player. Yeah, yeah. And then you also have teaching pros.
Yeah, and then which they'll also say the same thing. I'm a teaching. Sometimes they'll say I'm a teaching professional, or they'll just say I'm a professional. Well, that means they're more teaching it and accepting money for teaching. Yeah, which is also that differentiates you from being an amateur.
Yeah, but the big thing is accepting money. But again, for our conversation, there's like a couple different buckets because it's the tour players who are accepting, you know, getting paid to play. Then there's like the girls who say they're professional golfers because the USGA said, hey, you're accepting money to do golf content.
Yeah, that's I don't even know.
Goofy. Like, yeah, I don't know.
What would be your explanation, Leigh?
Just what Betsy said. I mean, you're accepting money and you're crossing what the USGA has said is a threshold, which I think is so wishy-washy because you have the $1,000 threshold, but then I know there's amateurs out there accepting all this free gear that's more than $1,000. I mean,
I think there's a line, and I don't know now either with like the NIL. the whole college thing? Because college players doesn't get paid now.
That's for their name image.
Maybe this is a whole episode.
Dude, it's a whole episode.
Betsy, I'm just going to have you back. Leigh, you too. Well, Leigh, you said earlier in the episode that all you want to do, you want to have a good time out there.
Yep.
And you also want to compete.
I do.
How do those two go together? Because I can stand behind that. It's tough for me to understand because sometimes when I'm competing, it's not necessarily fun and vice versa. What does that look like for you?
Well, at the end of the day, you have to remember that you're not like Betsy in the fact that you had to make some money in order to go home and eat, right? I mean, you're really just playing a game, and hopefully it's a game that you love. And there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. And what you got to do is really celebrate those good days and then have dementia about the bad days.
That's true. Short memory
or the bad shot
rounds.
or the bad shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because I find if I just forget that bad shot and move on, my overall game is going to be better than if I dwell on that bad shot. It just kind of escalates, and now there's another one, and then there's another one, and then my attitude is in the toilet, and
nothing good comes
it's
from
nothing
that.
good that's going to come from that.
So you still love the game?
I do love the game. I play every day.
Every day. She plays every day.
Yeah.
This is my money day. Thursday's my money day.
And
because
she
they
came
have
to
a
be
birdie
with
pot.
us, Betsy.
Yeah.
She came to be with us.
Gosh.
I'm so honored. Betsy, do you still love the game?
Oh, I'm obsessed.
You
I
are
absolutely
still.
love the game.
So both of you, after all these years, you still love the game. You don't find yourself jaded at all.
Nope.
No.
This is like the tick and, just
What
lights
drives
me
you.
up. It's what drives me.
But I have a different experience than Betsy does. I'm not getting up at 4:30. I'm not going to the gym and working out. I'm just getting up, deciding to have a little breakfast, taking my golf cart to the course.
Both ways of playing. I love it. Well, you guys inspire me. I really appreciate you being on. And again, Leigh, we're competing against each other on Sunday. Yet again, we compete against each other all the time. I cannot wait to play with you.
It comes down to the net player.
That's you don't know about that.
I get destroyed on net games. I can't play them.
I absolutely hate net games.
I'm like I get like 10 strokes added.
Well, both of you, thank you so much for being here. I hope I can have you back because again, there's so much more to talk about. Good luck this year, Betsy.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to see you.
Thanks for being here, ladies. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the details on today's show. If you haven't already, please give a 5-star written review on your favorite podcast platform, or even screenshot this episode and send it to your golf buddies. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the first tee in a couple days.